Welcome to My Divine Life, a podcast exploring topics of spirituality and personal development, both from our own perspective and the perspective of others. We are your hosts. I am Tamara Preston.
And I'm Trisha Carr. You can watch a webcast of this program on YouTube and follow us on Twitter and Periscope at My Divine Life 11.
Yeah.
And we're on our way.
Yes, we are. Well, so today we are going to talk about the unconditional laws of the universe.
Ooh.
It's exciting.
That's nice. You always hear the laws of the universe. I like the unconditional laws of the universe.
I love that too.
Yep.
Because it feels kind of love-centered. Doesn't it?
It does. And you know what? Because if you just consider something that everyone can grasp so easily, like gravity, we get
right.
that. It's unconditional.
That is unconditional.
Yeah.
That's an unconditional law.
It is. It definitely. Yeah. So what let's talk about those.
Anyway, okay, so we talked a little bit about this previously, and something that's been true in my life just in the last couple weeks. There was an incident that happened in the United States where a small child was killed for absolutely no reason. I mean, it was not that you'd ever have a reason to kill a child, but
right? Yeah.
This was it affected me just because of its absolute senselessness in nature, and it affected me to the core. And in just kind of thinking about that and just really feeling down, this message kind of came to me, which was, there's no good or bad in the universe. The universe doesn't recognize evil or good. And that to me was like, you have to be kidding.
Right. You
have to be joking. So that is something I'd really like to explore with you today because I know it to be true.
Right.
I know it to be true. But I'm having a really hard time understanding that. But I think that is because of my own human condition, and that's something that you're so good at analyzing and kind of taking apart for me to see. The one thing I just want to point out really quickly is that there are many universal laws, and this is definitely one of them. And in doing some research for this podcast, I came across an excellent article. And if you guys want to check it out, just to kind of become familiar with these unconditional laws of the universe, there are more than are listed on this site, I'm certain. But these are 111 unconditional laws of the universe. And so if you guys want to check these out, I would go to, it's nanice.com, and I'll spell that for you. It's NANICE.com. And you can just do a search for the unconditional laws of the universe. And these are just so beautifully written and perfect. And I think this will help maybe kind of give our listeners and our viewers a better idea of what we're talking about, because I think when you just take one of these laws and you try to dissect it or understand it, it's harder maybe than if you just look at them as a whole. But there are a lot of them. Judgment, obviously the thing that we're talking about today, doesn't exist in the universe. No good or evil, which I mentioned earlier. The universe is pure bliss. Everything is a virtual illusion.
Which actually makes a lot of sense if you say there's no judgment, there's no good or evil. Well, the only thing left is that the universe is pure bliss.
Right.
But you're like, wait, I didn't get the no good or evil part yet.
Right.
I like the no bliss part, but I don't feel it.
Right, exactly. So can you lead us through this? Because this is something that you have thought about a lot.
I have, and I do. And it is a hard concept to get. And even if you get it to any degree, you're never going to every single second always get it. And that is because you are physical, because you are a spiritual being, you are a soul having a physical experience.
Right.
And that is always going to be the case until you're not.
Right.
When you're not anymore, I think you'll get it totally well. You know, like, you'll super get it.
It's all going to come full circle at that point.
Yeah. But
Got
on that point, that's probably a really easy way I think everyone can start to grasp it a little bit is by understanding, by looking at the fact, okay, we are physical. Our physical bodies, our physical experience, we believes that it is wrong for us to die. It's bad. That's not a happy thing. It's wrong for me to die. It's wrong. It's bad. It hurts, which means I'm experiencing something that's damaging. I'm experiencing something that's painful. That's all in the realm of evil or bad, right? It's wrong for my husband to die, the person I love more than anything, more than anyone in the world. It's wrong for someone's child to die. It's wrong for anyone to, anyway, the point is, so that's wrong, right? Sure. Mm-hmm. In this moment, we can say, I don't want you to die. That would be wrong. But what if we never died? What if I never died? What if you never died? What if my husband never died?
Yeah.
Guess what? We couldn't have new babies.
Right.
They even did a movie. What was that movie where they did that? Where I think people didn't die and therefore no one could have any, there weren't children being born because the ecosystem will balance itself out. This isn't possible. It's fantasy. It's sci-fi.
Right.
If we ever cured death, that would be the end of birth as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you can feel that, then you can feel that, okay, actually, I guess it isn't bad that I die from that perspective.
Right.
It's all about like the perspective. So then basically we're just taking my own little small perspective of right now in this moment, it's bad for me to die, and being able to zoom out and say, well, obviously I have to die because I do want there to be birth. Mm-hmm. And you know what? So if you can continue to zoom out and imagine that you are the universe, or at least taking a universal outlook toward it, then now you're starting to get a little bit more about how there isn't any, because from this large perspective, then there isn't anything that's bad because it's all working toward life. It's all working toward expansion. It's all working toward this experience. Mm-hmm. From that perspective is bliss.
Right.
I know we're still just like on a razor's edge of beginning to understand it, but sometimes that's all you need to begin to understand it.
Exactly. That's exactly true. But what about from the perspective of, look at our history. Mm-hmm. We've had some really evil things happen in our history, or mm-hmm. at least things that, normally we'd view as evil. Is that just because we're human and we were given this lens of good and evil, even though it doesn't necessarily exist? You know what I mean? It's just such a big question.
It is a big question. And I'm sure I haven't seen that list yet. You just introduced. I've seen other.
Bring it on you.
Well, yeah, no, I'm super excited to explore it. I've seen other lists, and I've been examining many of the other laws of the universe. But there, along the lines of some of the other laws of the universe, there's the law of cause and effect. There's the law of reciprocity, and so we get to play inside and with all of those laws. So the law of cause and effect is obviously, so it's not bad then in a universe where there is no bad. It's not bad for me to murder someone. But the law of cause and effect I will have an effect if I do that. Personal, societal, that is 100% going to happen. And that is a part of the universe. That's a universal law as well.
Oh, okay.
So that begins to neutralize things a little bit for you too.
Right. Okay.
Rather than trying to be so tied to good or bad, it's more that things are neutral when you zoom way, way out.
I see. Mm-hmm. So instead of saying, I get it. Okay. So that's where, there's no judgment in the universe, but there is cause and effect. And
that is definitely one of the, there is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. That makes a little more sense.
And I think the reason that you had that edification, that enlightenment that came when it did, it can be because it was merciful to you. If you are able to zoom out, then you find mercy in the fact that that was relief. It's relief. If there's no good or bad, then you can find a way to be able to release that and not feel the suffering of it.
Oh, right.
And again, it's challenging, but that's okay because those are the colors of the physical experience.
Right.
Now, here's another good example of being able to just observe it at least.
Okay.
Is in nature. And I'm sure we have tons of people will be, our listeners and watchers, who love animals. I mean, I obviously love animals. They are my life. Yeah. Now look at nature. Nature, when we see an animal, a cheetah take down a gazelle. Again, what is he supposed to do? Is that bad for a cheetah to kill a gazelle? It's funny when I watch nature programs, like where there's like this beautiful chase of a cheetah because they're so wonderful, like in slow motion, running and running. And then it's going after this adorable gazelle. I'm rooting for both of them because I also know if he doesn't catch that gazelle, because the way their bodies work, they expend so much energy and they only eat every so many days. If he doesn't get it, there's a good chance, it's about 50% chance he'll die.
Oh, right.
Because they don't have enough energy to catch more prey without the fuel.
Right.
So so me judging whether the cheetah should win or the gazelle should get away, you see?
Right.
We look at nature, there's no good or bad. Even like
that's true.
I think that it must be
nature.
I've always thought it might be a real conundrum for people who are vegan for ethical reasons and then have animals themselves, because most of the mammals that we keep as pets can't be vegetarian. So I've never wanted to. I mean, I've always wanted to ask a vegan that but then at the same time, and they're so tenderhearted about it, I don't want them to feel challenged about it. So I actually haven't gotten around to it yet because I don't want to offend. I don't mean it.
You have to find the right.
Right, because I don't mean any offense. I'm just curious how that feels to them.
Sure,
yeah.
Exactly.
So there's no judgment in nature, and nature is just really an example, is just one of the examples of the universe, So that's one way that we can start to, again, at least observe it and relate to it. We see animals do amazing, like the spectrum of amazing things, like, a dog take on, or like some animal that would nurse or mother an animal that would or rescue, even in the wild. We see them rescue another species that might be otherwise prey. Even in the wild, it's different in captivity. But then we also see a mother cat, when she has a runt in the litter, try to suffocate it.
Yes.
But the reason she's doing that is because her instinct is telling her, if I have one that is weak, then the rest of us will be in danger because it attracts predators.
Right.
So,
and her little kitty friends aren't calling her on the phone and saying, what the heck, Patrice?
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Right.
To Runty.
Yeah, to Runty. Poor Runty.
That's not happening.
And at the same time, if she lost one of her kittens, otherwise she would mourn. She feels separation and she feels all the range. And by the way, just as a side note, there's no judgment in nature. They have the same range of emotions that we do.
Yes, that's right.
So I hope this is helping people to begin to observe it or begin to grasp it. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with never, ever understanding it completely. And certainly in some moments not getting it at all, because that's who we are. We're physical beings.
Right, exactly. Because of the human condition. Because, in our minds, it has to be wrong. It has to be evil, to kill.
But we're more than just...
self-defense.
Right, exactly, unless it's self-defense.
There are carve-outs. And that's okay.
But the thing is to point out is that we are eternal spiritual beings having a finite physical experience.
Finite being the key word there. That's right. Because it is believed that we're just here for a short time to either learn the lessons that we didn't learn the last time we were here, or
it's just experience. Yeah.
Just get a new experience. Exactly right.
And that noting that we are this dichotomy, that actually answers a lot of questions too. Why we do have so many religions and so many people grasping for this can't be the end. When I lose someone that I love, that can't be it. We start imagining that there's a reason why our beings are grasping for that, and that's because it certainly from my perspective, and so that's the only thing I can speak of, it is 100% true, and that's why it's so painful. Because when we lose someone, we are actually facing a lie, and that is that they're gone. That's not the truth. They're gone. They're not gone. Their bodies are gone. Their bodies have changed into something else. Their bodies are decomposing and becoming, a slowing down, a slowed down energy force that will again become a positive energy force. But they're not actually gone, and that's why it's hard. That's why we grieve, because we because the universe doesn't believe in separation either. Is that one of her laws?
That is.
Okay.
That's one of them that
That's a law. There's no separation.
Equally connected, all of us.
Right.
From the largest planet to the small speck of sand. I love that one. It's funny that you bring that up because I loved that.
Yeah.
We're all one. We're all connected. What if I told you that one of the universal laws was, and I'm going to use a word that means something different to everybody. Okay. But in this sense, what if I told you that one of the universal laws was that karma does not exist?
Well, right, because karma, I think that really karma is misused rampantly. I think, I'm assuming I haven't spoken with this Nanis, is that her name? Or that's the name of the website.
That is, yes.
Yeah. By the way, how wonderful that this is just like free on the web when she could have written a book and made money off of it. Maybe she's done that as well, but either way, I think it's so gorgeous and generous.
Amazing. Don't you want to talk to her now?
I do. Nanis, we love you. Or maybe it's Naniche.
Oh, what if I totally butchered her name? And she's like beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, she looks like a total light. Her name is Nanis Ellis.
Oh.
And she is an author. And won't she be surprised?
We need to tag her so she knows that we've just been like singing her praises.
I know.
This whole this podcast is called Nanis. Ellis. So I don't know. I would love to ask Nanis what she means by that. But karma, in my experience, a lot of times, and I think a lot of it has to do with the Beatles song, "Instant Karma is going to get you."
Yes. I think that is what most people.
Yeah.
I, for one, I mean, I understand that it means something different to everybody because, I'm not even going to get into that. I'll just say that I think for most people it means what goes around comes around.
Exactly. Like retribution. They use the word karmic retribution. That's something, that's a phrase. I would say karmic retribution doesn't exist. I think, I don't know if that's what she means or not. I can't make assumptions,
let's assume for this discussion that that's what she means. Karmic retribution.
I think she must.
If you do something bad, then don't worry about it because something bad is going to happen to you.
Right. I think that karmic retribution, or what goes around comes around, is closer to the law of cause and effect, which we just mentioned. But the law of cause and effect, again, that's not what goes around comes around still exactly. It just means basically like Newton's law, every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Right. That's similar to what cause and effect is. I think that what happens, like in the case in the example I brought up earlier, if I murdered someone, that cause will affect suffering for me because I went against unification, which is another law. Yeah.
You just nailed it.
Yeah.
I think you just totally nailed it.
We experience suffering when we are believing lies.
Right.
So I believe that, that when someone dies, that's the end of them and they don't exist anymore. But the law of unification, I don't know if that's what she calls it, or the fact that we're all one, that's a lie. And so that's why I suffer. Karma doesn't exist. So karmic retribution, or what goes around comes around. Exactly. Should we talk about what karma really means?
There's a bug.
What karma means, and here's the thing. Karma is a Sanskrit word, right?
It is, yeah. And it talks about, how they can stop coming back, through the cycle.
Sure. So karma actually is the principle of exploring and seeking balance. So you make karmic contracts before you come to this planet, between lives or before life, because you want to experience basically expansion in one way or another. Okay. So I think a lot of people think that, well, I was a murderer in the last life, so now this time I'm going to be murdered. And it's like, it's the only decision, because there's no judgment. It's just the soul, the being deciding to expand deciding to work on something new and understand new perspectives. Why do we do that? Because we understand things best by contrast. I understand black because I understand white. I understand light because I understand dark.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, but then what about the reverse? And all that makes so much more sense to me when you put it in those terms, because I just have a hard time believing, that but if we think that, that karmic retribution doesn't exist. Doesn't it also go the other way too? Isn't the opposite true? So if you do something good isn't necessarily going to happen to you because you did something good.
Right.
But the law of cause and effect says if we do something good for somebody, then we feel good.
We feel good. We raise our vibration. We become more expanded. We become a more expanded being. We basically become more enlightened.
Right.
And therefore, we're attracting, by the law of attraction, we're attracting like vibrations. Or like vibrations will be showing up in our holograph, because basically this is just a reflection of my inner vibration. So if I'm raising my vibration and I do that because I've done something good, and that makes me feel, that makes me better. I mean, your emotions are the barometer for expansion. They're the clues to whether you're reaching, expansion or not. Then I will. Then we have two laws, and it's not exactly the law of cause and effect, but in a way it is, because I'm just raising my vibration. Therefore, I'm attracting, by the law of attraction, another universal law, higher vibrational matches.
Okay, and this is, I'll tell you why I love all this, because so often we think, I'll do something good so that good things will happen to me. And that's where we end it. But that's not it. And if you understand exactly where it comes from, and you understand vibrations and higher vibrations for slower vibrations, then you begin to get a better picture of the universe that we live in and how all this affects us. Right. And it's not so much that we'll do something good so something good will happen to us. It's do something good because that improves yourself, which improves your energy, which is visible to other people, whether, like physically visible or not, they feel it. And it just, every step you take, every time you do good or think good thoughts, because those don't leave.
They don't. All your thoughts exist because thoughts are things. Yes.
Oh, still.
Yeah.
People that heard.
Well, and by the way, if I may, I mean, you not that you were necessarily intending this, but when you said, I'm going to do good things so that good things will happen to me. I'm going to do a good thing so someone will do something good back. Just for example, let's take that. Like, you can actually do something that is on the surface positive, but your motivation could be not so high vibrational, not so positive. I mean, and that's that. So then the law of cause and effect will kick in, and it's like we can feel these things. We know that when someone is doing something that is on the surface good, and we're like, well, okay, I know that's a nice thing that she did, but I feel like shit about it. You know what I mean? Like, we know that. We feel it. Everyone is very sensitive to, the actual energy of the situation. And we don't always know why, because we're like, my mother-in-law gave me not mine. My mother-in-law gave me this thing, but it feels manipulative. Even though it's a nice thing, it feels like I'm supposed to do something that I don't want to do in exchange for it. You see how that's not really doing something good that raises your vibration, that actually returns a visible result of attracting then higher vibrational. You do things for the sake of doing good. Right. That would be higher vibrational.
Right, which is just it's just a good way to live. If you're striving to be a better person, to work on your personal development all the time, that is it's just a good way to live. And it doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen to you, because, we need the balance in our lives. But certainly when you start to understand it from that perspective, it feels better. It makes more sense. It makes you want to be a better person for just the sake of being a better person.
And that there's actual ways to do it. Like, understand that we understand we actually do, because our souls are perfectly wise. We actually do understand these laws. We're just remembering them when we go. We're just undoing conditioning that of like what society has given us. And that was all created by ego, which is another topic. But ego, or the personality, the fear response in us that is trying to, at all costs, avoid death, that's not the best way to live. At all costs avoid death, then I would be a hermit. I would stay in my room, Right. That's what my ego would have me do to an extreme. But, being able to fly into an airplane and go see someone that you love, your ego's worried about that.
Right. That's just good for your soul,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. I understand that. It does. It's starting to make more sense to me. I think I just need to live with it for a little bit.
Forever. And then you'll live with it the next life, and you'll live with it the next life.
That's right. Well, it is interesting because one of these other universal laws is that the universe has nothing to learn or to teach. As
a whole,
yeah,
right? That makes sense.
I mean?
Because it is everything, and it's infinite, and it has infinite wisdom, and it has infinite existence, and right.
That's exactly right. So when we draw on these messages that we get for, for example, for me, and really just feeling some misery over that death, I think, like you said, it's just me remembering,
mm-hmm.
These things.
Right.
There's not there, I don't mean more to the universe than, anybody else does.
Right.
We're all the most valuable and not.
Exactly. Well, can I mention, so I have a blog on my website, Trisha Carr Medium or Trisha Carr Charm, both go to the same space, on 2 butterflies, because I'm an animal communicator, which we'll talk about some other episode, but I communicate with animals telepathically. And these 2 butterflies that I met while I was out on a trail, one butterfly was explaining that we felt into one another's experience, the butterfly and me, and I felt through the butterfly's experience that they don't have something like compassion as butterflies. Like their consciousness is a little purer. And I'm not saying like they're better. Again, there's no judgment. They're not better or anything. It's just that they have a pure consciousness, meaning they have less personality, less ego. They do have ego because they're physical, but they have a little less, which just means that they are kind of a little more neutral. And it was wild because I felt that from her. I felt that they don't have compassion. They don't have the need for it because what I do is intrinsically a part of the all. Mm-hmm. And she felt into me and felt that I have compassion. And I can't remember how we got into the conversation. You have to read my blog. And then she felt, because they do, we could feel into one another. Mm-hmm. I felt for a brief moment what it would be like to not need compassion. And she felt for a brief moment what compassion meant. And she actually had a little bit of a question. She was like, wait, am I supposed to care more for someone else than myself? Like she actually wondered that. And I was like, no, I think that's fine. Oh, that's all right. Anyway, read the blog. I actually am pretty articulate in that. So it's called 2 Butterflies on my blog at Trisha Carr Medium. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that because that is one of my favorite stories and the subject of a children's book.
Yes, that's right. That we have coming out soon called A Tale of 2 Butterflies that we co-wrote.
Talking about that. I'm so excited. That is just one of the many projects, by the way, that we're working on, and so excited to move those forward. But Ms. Trisha Carr, I do believe we've run out of time for the day.
We're out of time.
I am sorry. This has been absolutely amazing, and thank you for kind of giving me the space to talk about this because it. I've been very conflicted about it. I still am very conflicted about it, but I am happy to be able to hash this out with you.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Again, we are Tamara and Preston and Trisha Carr, and this is My Divine Life.
We'll see you next time.